If you're born short, you're happy that you're short. If you're tall, you're happy that you're born tall. You accept things as they are, you make the most of it. This is what the idea of Amor Fati is. Acceptance is a word that we struggle with because it seems defeatist, it seems resigned. But the Stoics, Epictetus, say we have to learn how to practice the art of acquiescence. Accepting the things that happen to us is actually the first step in being able to respond to them, to turn them into something. There's a powerful Stoic concept called Amor Fati, which we're going to talk about in today's episode. I'm Ryan Holiday. I've written a number of books about Stoic philosophy. I've spoken about it from the NBA to the NFL, sitting senators and special forces leaders. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about that Amor Fati, a love of fate, embracing, accepting the things that have happened to you, the situations you find yourself in, not because you're resigned, not because you're passive, but because it's the first step in turning it into something great. It's the first step in making something. That's what we're going to talk about in today's episode. So Thomas Edison he's America's most successful inventor. He's sitting down for dinner with his family, and a man rushes in. The factory is on fire, and Edison shows up on the scene and he sees it. His life's work up in flames. His son is standing there shell-shocked. And what does Edison say? Edison says, "Go get your mother and all her friends. They'll never see a fire like this again." And some people thought he lost his mind, but he actually goes on to repeat a line from a Kipling poem about triumph and disaster, treating these two imposters just the same. What Edison is realizing, as a Stoic does, is that some things are just out of our control. We can't change them. No amount of whining or complaining or weeping is going to affect them, but we can control how we respond. And that's what Edison does. He tells a reporter the next day, "I've been through stuff like this before." He says, "It prevents an old man from getting bored." And he starts rebuilding. He actually takes $1 million loan from Henry Ford. In 6 weeks, it's partially back up and running. In 6 months, it's fully operational. And the third act of Edison's life is rebuilding after this disaster. And I want you to think about that as well. That's the idea, that you'll never see something like this again. You can at least enjoy the absurdity, the surreal beauty of it. And then you can say, this prevents me from getting bored. Now I'm going to get back to work and I'm going to turn this into something. You have two options. You can want things to turn out a certain way, or you could welcome them the way they happen, Epictetus says. He says, you could want them to turn out as you want them to, or you could decide that you want them to turn out how they've turned out. And so this is essentially the discipline, for the Stoics, this is the discipline of assent. Are you going to wish things are a certain way, or are you going to accept them as they are? That doesn't mean you accept the injustices of the world per se, but it means if it's raining, you're happy that it's raining. If it's cloudy, you're happy that it's cloudy. If it's sunny and hot, you're happy that it's sunny and hot. If you're born short, you're happy that you're short. If you're tall, you're happy that you're born tall. You accept things as they are, you make the most of it. This is what the idea of Amor Fati is. Be happy that things are the way that they are, that you were given what you've been given, and then get to work using it. That's what Stoicism is about. So the Stoics were really big on acceptance. And acceptance is a scary word to ambitious people because we didn't get where we are by accepting the status quo or by resigning ourselves to things. But to the Stoics, this acceptance of external events, of things that are outside of our control, was the first step in moving forward, in using them in some way. And so there's a Latin phrase that the Stoics were fond of, and it's Amor Fati, and it translates to a love of fate. Not just acceptance, but an embracing of those circumstances, whatever they may be. And so for Marcus Aurelius, he said that what you throw in front of a fire is fuel for the fire. And that's the image that they thought about for good and bad events. When we look back on the bad things that have happened to us in life, with enough time, with enough distance, we come to accept them, maybe even feel grateful for them. We know that without those things, with the breakup or the failure or the embarrassing mistake or the accident, we wouldn't be where we are now. But in that moment, that was the furthest thought from our mind. We were fighting it, we were resenting it, we were wishing it was otherwise. If later you're going to feel good about it, if later you're going to give yourself that gift, why delay it? Why not give it to yourself now? Practice the art of acquiescence. Don't resent it, don't fight it, accept it for what it is, and understand, even if you can't see it in this very moment, in the end, you will come to see this as a positive. You will come to see it as good. You will come to see it as a thing that made you who you are and how it couldn't have been anything different. It's been a rough year, like just a rough year for everyone. But Marcus Aurelius, at the end of his life, as he was facing death even, the scariest thing that a human can face, he said, remind yourself of all the things that you've been through and what you've had to endure. He was trying to buck himself up to go, of course you can get through this. Think of all the things that you've gotten through in your life. And that's what you have to think about with what you're going through today, big and small. You've been through things like this before. You can get through this. You've gotten through worse. And when you know that, it helps you. That when Edison's factory burns down, he says, I've been through things like this before. He's like, it's going to prevent me from getting bored. I'm going to use this. And that's what a Stoic does. They use their past experiences to inspire and motivate them and give them confidence for whatever it is that they're having to face right now.
Amor Fati coin.
Yes.
Which is the idea that it's also a Nietzsche phrase of sort of loving everything that happens to you, not resenting it, not fighting against it, not carrying around a grudge or a burden, but sort of embracing it and finding the good in it.
Yeah.
Where does that fit in with our human nature?
Well, it doesn't fit in because it's not natural to us. Our natural frame, our natural starting position is when something bad happens, why me? You know, to feel sort of a grievance. A lot of what I'm talking about in this book is overcoming some of these natural elements in human nature and turning them around and using them for another purpose, another way. And Amor Fati is very powerful in that you train yourself to accept everything that happens. It's like, for Nietzsche, it was, this is life. Life involves pain. Life involves adversity. You're going to die one day and it's not going to be pleasant. Your friends and family members, they're going to die one day and it's not going to be pleasant. You're going to have failure in life. People are going to hurt you. But that is life. That's what it is. So to resist that, to be angry about that, means to not love life itself.
Obviously, you've gone through some adversity in your own life recently. Yeah. It's easy to talk about Amor Fati, especially when you're talking about, oh, I'm going to love that my plane is delayed, or you know, that there's some trouble with the printer in my book or something. How have you tried to practice Amor Fati recovering from a stroke?
Well, you know what that's like. You were writing a book about Stoicism and obstacles the way, and then you got robbed and you had all these things happen.
Sure.
And you were being tested. Well, I had a stroke, and it's like the ultimate test for me. I've never had to go through something like this because I'm somebody who's very physically active and independent. And suddenly I can't use the left side of my body and I'm completely dependent. And the initial reaction is the natural reaction. Oh man, damn, why did this have to happen? This is so unfair. Why me? You know, if only I could just keep swimming and doing my life the way it was. I'm so upset. And I talk in the book, your natural reactions, you don't have to fight them. You have to go take the next step, which is the next day after you've gone through this, is to analyze your own emotions and why you're feeling that way. So I've had to go through that process, and it's actually been extremely powerful for me. I have to retrain my body. Every day I have to learn how to use my fingers again, like a baby. And I'm learning how the mind works. I'm learning about patience and frustration, about my own limits. And I can't necessarily say I love my stroke. I think that would be false of me to say something like that. I don't love that this happened, but I've accepted it and I've discovered how it can make me a better and stronger person.
I hope you like this video. I hope you subscribe. But what I really want you to subscribe to is our daily Stoic email, 1 bit of Stoic wisdom, totally for free to the largest community of Stoics ever in existence. You can sign up at dailystoic.com/email. There's no spam. You can unsubscribe at any time. I love sending it. I've sent it every day for the last 6 years, and I hope to see you there at dailystoic.com/email.